Welcome back to another Beer and a Take. I'm Nick, Score Better Acts podcast, as we can see right here. And today I'll be reviewing the Aleworks Brewing Company's American Heritage Chocolate Stout. Now, I have a beautiful girlfriend who was so nice enough to bring me back this from historic Williamsburg, and I figured I'd give it a try on the show. I'm a huge fan of stouts, and this is actually made with American Heritage Chocolate. So I don't know what American Heritage Chocolate is, but it sounds like it's pretty good chocolate, all America and whatnot. So we're going to give this bad boy a whirl. Honestly, I like for the holidays especially, I really do enjoy the chocolate flavored stuff, things with cinnamon in it. The holidays are kind of sweet, Christmas time. This is 7% alcohol by volume, and we'll give it a try right now. The chocolate doesn't overwhelm you to the point where it feels very sweet as you're drinking it. And as far as a stout is concerned, so this isn't made with NO2, this is made with CO2, obviously, as opposed to something like Guinness that's made with NO2. NO2 tends to be very heavy. It's also why when you drink a Guinness, you have that very creamy head on the top of the beer. So if it's made with CO2, it actually feels lighter. That's why people say Guinness is very, very heavy. It's not necessarily true. It's just that it has NO2, and NO2 will sit in your stomach, and it just doesn't digest the same way as CO2. So this is carbonated with CO2, and that's why it's actually very light as far as stouts are concerned. And this is pretty good. And it's a little dangerous, too, because it doesn't taste overwhelming. 7% alcohol is higher than your average. Let's talk about what my take is. And after this week's football, how could I not talk about it? And the disparity between what roughing the passer is versus what's not roughing the passer. Now, unfortunately, I am a Jets fan, and I watched my quarterback get laid out this Sunday against the Buffalo Bills or the Toronto Bills or whatever part of Canada they're from. And I don't think at any point during that game there was anything that resembled an illegal hit or a roughing. However, the thing that I don't like is that later we saw Justin Herbert get sacked, and they threw a flag, 15-yard penalty, because as the ball carrier, yes, he did have the ball in his hands. The defender, I guess, when he wrapped him up, fell on top of him, which I don't understand. If you wrap somebody up and you're leaning forward, how you can not fall on them. But a 15-yard penalty for that, and Mike White basically just got demolished. And that's cool. Now, I'm not saying that Mike White should get a 15-yard penalty. He should be given an extra 15 yards because of the violence in which he was hit. I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that the NFL, when you see John Franklin Myers get a 15-yard penalty for pushing Mac Jones, costing us a pick six and possibly the game against the Pats a few weeks ago, and then you're sitting there watching, Matt Milano, who, again, great player, clean hit, textbook, lays out Mike White, and you're sitting there going, oh, it's for safety. It's hypocritical. It's flat out hypocritical. You can't sit there and show me JFM touch Mac Jones and say that's not a penalty, and then watch somebody else get leveled and go, that's part of the game. It just doesn't make sense. Either they're both penalties or neither are penalties. And I'm okay with neither being penalties. I'm all about that life of it's a contact sport and it's a violent game and that's how it's going to be. Totally cool with that. But then don't give me these ticky-tack plays. And the thing for me as a Jets fan is I know they never go my way. Perfect example. Last week against the Vikes, Jordan Whitehead puts a hit on Justin Jefferson within the lines. Clean hit, gets a 15-yard penalty. Garrett Wilson's, 2-3 feet out of bounds? He's further out of bounds than the referee who's standing on the line, gets drilled by Jordan Poyer, and that's totally fine. No flag, nothing. And there's Bills fans out there going, wow, we thought we were going to get a 15-yard penalty on that one. But, Jets, as a Jets fan, you watch it every week. The referees do not protect our players. We saw it last year with Zach Wilson against the Patriots, where he hurt his knee, where they're hitting him well after he's thrown the ball. And there's just no respect. There's no protection. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's not the respect aspect. It's the protection. The whole point of these rules is to protect the player basically from the game. It's a dangerous game, and it doesn't need to be more dangerous needlessly. And, when Garrett Wilson's talking to a referee during the Patriots game going, how come I'm not getting 15 yards for getting hit this way or that way? And the referee looks at him and says, you're not at Ohio State. Like, what does that imply? Does that imply that, like, you haven't earned it in the NFL? Are you supposed to earn the rules? I don't understand that. So because you haven't played in the NFL a long time, you're not given the same protection that everybody should receive. You know, and I think that's a bigger problem across all sports, where they make rules for specific players, though many players get injured. Only certain players actually count. Now, me personally, I find that to be like atrocious, just because, you know, like I don't feel that Tom Brady's value as a human being and his ability to be safe is any more or less important than anybody else. You know, Brock Purdy, for instance. You know, like you're gonna sit there and say, oh, but as a business aspect, he's more important. That's great. I don't think that Brock Purdy's family cares about how much money he's bringing to them more or less than Tom Brady's family cares about them as human beings. And if we're really caring about the players as humans, as people, that's the whole point of protecting them, not protecting investments. They are not stock portfolios. They're people. Then we need to protect everybody across the board, regardless of how it happens. And generally speaking, they make protection rules when the star gets hurt. And that's always been a big problem for me. And you see it across many sports. It's happened in football where you can't hit quarterbacks below the knee because Tom Brady broke his knee so many years ago. You can't horse collar tackle wide receivers because Terrell Owens broke his ankle. You can't hit the catcher anymore because Buster Posey broke his collarbone or whatever it was. Meanwhile, the season before, Francisco Cervelli got railed and snapped his wrist in a preseason game on the exact same type of play, and they didn't make a rule for him. But again, Francisco Cervelli's not a prior MVP, so I guess his life doesn't matter as much as Buster Posey's. But I think there needs to be more consistency across the league in all sports for safety measures. If you're going to make a rule for safety purposes, then the safety applies to everybody, not just the guys that are making you money this week. I give this like a 3.5. I really enjoy this. I like a good stout. I'm a big stout person, and this is a good stout. And it's not too heavy, which is good because I'm not really in the mood to drink anything heavy right now. And, you know, as TJ says, it's crushable. You could definitely chug this real fast and not feel like you just ate a loaf of bread. And again, 7% alcohol, you know, that's fairly high for a beer, especially a stout. Generally speaking, unless you're going to make a stout in like a bourbon barrel, it's not going to be overly alcoholic. So the fact that this is, you know, 7% and it doesn't have any strong flavor to it, it's got that nice chocolate edge on it, you know, and it's sourced, you know, in America, at a local craft brew in Williamsburg, Virginia, heart of America, historic Williamsburg, not to be confused with Williamsburg in Brooklyn. Cheers. This is 3.5 flights out of 4. Delicious.